Welcome back to the Quick Notes with Chris on. Today we're going to be talking about the book Now Discover Your Strengths by Buckingham. It's a really interesting book that I definitely think you should certainly get introduced to if you're a person who's new to the self-help game and new to sort of developing yourself, and especially if you don't necessarily know exactly what it is that you're looking towards achieving when it comes to life. The book breaks down such simple concepts very easily and it's easy to understand way, and it's quite simple. It involves exercises that you can look towards applying within your life to help at what it is in terms of discovering your strengths, as it goes by the title. So the book is not only about why you should discover your strengths, but also how to do it. And I think it's really important, especially if you're an individual who doesn't necessarily know what he or she wants to do long term with their life, or are looking to even accomplish anything on the short, medium to long term. So the first thing is, the book wants to recognize is that so often than not, when it comes to businesses, hiring employees, or working in school, so many people focus too much on your weaknesses. Now, there is a thing that sort of goes against the grain, but it's the idea that every single skill can be learned by anyone. And although that is definitely true, by definition, that means that certain skills are picked up easier than other skills specifically. So in order to basically think that you need to focus on your weaknesses or minimizing them is kind of irrelevant, because no matter what, there is such an infinite amount of different skills out there. Why would you focus on essentially trying to make weaknesses strengths when you can focus on making things that you naturally have, picking up to your strength and working on it and actively being able to do it for multiple reasons and ended up making a career out of it, making money? The basically book suggests focus on your strength and look towards amplifying them. Minimize on your weaknesses along the way. For example, if you're really, really good at communicating, but you're really bad at writing, get your writing up to a standard where it's not necessarily a burden, and then focus maximizing it on your communication way. Creating a system that's amplifying on your natural talents versus one that maximizes on your weaknesses. And too often than not, whenever you go into business, whenever you go into management and everything like that, everybody has these standards that everybody needs to perform of. But the definition of a great leader is an individual who basically hires people according to their weaknesses. See, if a CEO of a company isn't the best financial advisor, they aren't the best anything, they aren't the best coder, they aren't the best investor, but what they are good at is leadership. And what they do is they hire people accordingly. And that's the definition of a good leader, a good business owner, a good manager. Now, if that's the case in the real world, whenever it comes to business application, why don't we operate the same way? Maximizing on our strengths and delegating out our weaknesses to the standard where they're not bringing us down. Well, this is essentially what the book talks about. So the definition of strength is being able to consistent, near perfect performance in any activity. So if there is something that you do that you have a natural affinity towards, of course you want to look towards maximizing on that. Utilizing and trying to basically become a professional in the thing that you're naturally able to pick up. Strength equals talent plus knowledge and skills. Talent is something that means realistically that you pick up quite quickly. It wasn't difficult to you compared to either other people or even yourself. Anything that you look towards achieving, you picked up quite straight away. The next one is knowledge. So it's talent within application. You have a knowledge base surrounding the skill that you're looking towards developing it. And when it comes to application, it's quite simple. And then finally, the skills that come with it. Something like basketball has the knowledge behind it and the skills, and everybody looks towards maybe focusing on the specifics of the identified overall talent, when in reality it's the generalized sport or activity that you need to understand if you're good at, because everybody might be able to good speaking English, but that might not mean that you're actually really great at public speaking or anything to do with it. There's so many vast activities that you can do with the basic skill. So understand what you're naturally good at as an overall and work backwards from there. So how is it that you find this skill? Well, the book really breaks it down into 3 simple steps. Focus on your yearnings and monitor your yearnings, monitor your whatever you rapidly learn, and monitor your satisfaction. So I'll break those down each accordingly. The first one is your yearning. What is something that naturally calls you? What are the things that something that you're always necessarily wanting to do that has a level of productivity behind it? Something like constantly wanting to drink alcohol, constantly wanting to go out, or constantly wanting to be on social media might not necessarily be positive yearnings, but I'm talking about something like maybe it's a sport, maybe it's a level of business, maybe it's a level of academia, maybe it's a level of communication. If there's an aspect of that you're always being drawn to, then maybe focus on that and recognize if it's potentially can be made a career out of. For example, if you're really good at communicating, if you've noticed you've always been a good talker, maybe it's looking towards being in the sales industry would be a great option for you, whether it's running your own business with a sales-oriented background or getting right back into it. That makes sense because you have a natural yearning towards it. It's almost something that you're calling, it's something that you're actively looking towards doing, it's something that's constantly on your mind. Or even nowadays, something like video games. Video games are something that is so dominant and has basically become an idea that you can literally make so much money out of it. So no longer has it become something that's just for fun. Now it can legitimately take a career out of it. So that's, for an example, if that's something that you're constantly out of your mind, you may as well go all out. You may as well look towards trying to make a career out of it. And if you want to make professional money, be a professional. The next thing that the book talks about is rapid learning. So this one's a little bit tough because it involves you having to try a lot of things. And the easiest way to identify this is if you monitor it while you were growing up. Because when you were growing up, there is a lot of opportunity to try a bunch of different work styles, a bunch of different types of skills that you can look towards applying within your life. So what is the things that you rapidly learn, and understanding how it is that you did learn and the certain topics and subjects that you were great at. Going back to communication for an example, if there was a lot of assessment within school that you naturally picked up an affinity for, or you naturally became really, really good at quite quickly, then you should definitely look towards trying to implement that towards your career, work-wise, business-wise, or general success-wise. That is a no-brainer. It wouldn't make sense for someone who's absolutely terrible at math to try to pursue a career in math. Why would you do that? Well, that's exactly what the book is talking about. Amplify your strengths. Focus on what you're naturally attributing to, what you're naturally yearning towards, and what you rapidly, quickly pick up, and then look towards creating a career or utilizing that skill in order to make money out of it. That way, you'll naturally be able to make money faster than any other career that you were probably going to go into further, or before that. The next one is satisfaction. This one is obviously super obvious. If there's ever a skill or way of thinking or way of working and learning that naturally made you feel good. You see, good behavior is obviously good rewardment for whatever task. If there's something that is productive and positive or potentially can be made money for you, of course, why would you not naturally learn towards doing that? If you've ever heard the saying, find the thing that you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life, well, this sort of coincides with that quote. It's very similar. There are certain aspects towards life that you have to do. If there's certain things that you find a little bit easier or a little bit rewarding or something that you prefer to do over others, why would you not naturally look towards achieving that in a long-term career, whether it's business or anything? Well, that's basically what the book talks about. If you can find all three, then of course that's your natural strength, and you should definitely look towards pursuing it further, especially if it's a viable path, it's productive, and can actually make you a decent amount of money. So to summarize, whatever it is that you yearn for, something that you're naturally being called to, something that's constantly on your mind, whatever you rapidly learn, picking up, whether it's an aspect of a certain type of academia, math, science, or communication, or any type of work when it comes to your hands and physical skill. Finally, satisfaction. What type of work actually makes you feel good? Good behavior is a great reward in itself. So, if you can master those three, then I definitely think you should look towards putting yourself in a direction and position in order to be in that industry. Finally, the book starts to summarize some things that people have fears over and essentially what to do when it overcomes them. The three fears are weakness, failure, and one's true self. People have a fear of their weakness, which is exactly why you should focus on your strength. They understand that there's certain aspects to their job that may need to involve them doing something that they don't necessarily like. Well, I highly suggest you focus on your weaknesses, minimizing them to a certain standard where they no longer affect you in a negative light. Always wanting to make sure that no matter what, it's never going to be negatively affecting your service or bringing it down, but instead focus on your strengths. For example, in basketball, there's so many different aspects to basketball, but basketball still can be your strength. You might be naturally inclined to be a good shooter, might be inclined to be a good passer, but you might be a terrible rebounder. Well, work on your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. So your rebounding, you're able to get the average ones that normally are able to not be in the way. They're very simplistic. You don't need to necessarily fight for. And then all the rest of your time should be invested in literally capitalizing on strengths. There's so many examples of people making complete and utter careers at being perfectionists at these specific skill sets when it comes to basketball. That's the same way when it comes to business. Same way when it comes to general success over a majority of different categories. If you just actively focus towards one specific thing, then you can look towards literally making a career out of it. The next one is fear of failure. So many people view setbacks as the reason as to why they shouldn't try or should stop trying. When in reality, setbacks and failure is literally the path and journey towards being success. So don't be discouraged by it. And finally, the fear of one's true self. If you've ever heard any of the sayings that talk about how a man's greatest fear isn't that he's inadequate, but that he is more powerful beyond belief, this one is basically what it's talking about. It's turning those fears that you might have into the ability that you don't know who you will become. Understand that it's not who you are today, but who you will be tomorrow. Strive for progress, not for perfection. You want to get closer to the person that you want to be, rather than further away from it. Anyways, guys, that's it for Quick Notes with Chris on Now Discover Your Strengths by Marcus Buckingham. I highly suggest you look at some of the other videos that we have on the channel, and don't stop there whenever it comes to improvement. Keep striving to put yourself in a better position for success. I'll see you guys in the next one.